War has always been part of humanity's story, a shadow that follows every age of progress. From bronze blades to nuclear fire, each battle reveals who we are, what we fear, and what we're willing to fight for. These are 100 facts about the greatest wars in human history, told through time, science, and survival. Chapter 1. War has always shaped the rise and fall of civilizations. The first recorded battle, the Battle of Megiddo in 1479 BCE, saw Egyptian pharaoh Thutmose III fighting Canaanite kings. Over 10,000 soldiers marched under bronze weapons and chariots, fighting for dominance. That single clash defined early military strategy. Speed, surprise, and control of land meant survival. Chapter 2. The Persian Empire once ruled the largest landmass on Earth. When they invaded Greece in 480 BCE, 300 Spartans held the narrow pass at Thermopylae against thousands. They lost, but their defiance changed history, inspiring Greece to unite. That unity led to victory at Salamis, where naval tactics and geography decided the fate of empires. Chapter 3. Alexander the Great conquered from Greece to India before turning 33. His army used the phalanx, a formation so precise it moved like a single creature. Each soldier carried a long spear, forming walls of death. His empire spread Greek language and science across continents, a reminder that war, ironically, can spread ideas faster than peace. Chapter 4. Rome's military might built an empire lasting over 1,000 years. Discipline and engineering made them unstoppable. They built roads, bridges, and siege machines faster than their enemies could respond. The Roman legions didn't just conquer, they constructed civilization as they marched, turning war into an organized system of progress and control. Chapter 5. The Mongol Empire rose from the steppes under Genghis Khan. With unmatched mobility, they crossed deserts and mountains, using horses as living weapons. Their coordination and communication outclassed entire kingdoms. They turned war into an exact science: fast attacks, psychological fear, and intelligence networks. In just decades, they ruled more land than Rome ever did. Chapter 6. The 100 Years' War wasn't one continuous fight, but generations of blood and strategy. England and France fought over thrones and pride. Longbows changed warfare, piercing armor that once meant safety. Amid it all rose Joan of Arc, a teenage girl who turned belief into battlefield power. Faith became a weapon as sharp as steel. Chapter 7. Gunpowder changed everything. First used in China, it spread westward and ended the Age of Knights. Castles that once stood invincible crumbled under cannons. The science of chemistry met the brutality of war, reshaping every battlefield. Technology, for the first time, became deadlier than courage, and progress meant destruction on a new scale. Chapter 8. Napoleon Bonaparte mastered the art of movement. He didn't just fight battles, he choreographed them. His troops marched faster, hit harder, and lived off the land. Using early logistics, he predicted his enemies like a chess player reading the board. His downfall came not from weakness, but from overreaching. Russia's winter conquered him. Chapter 9. The American Civil War was the first modern war. Railroads, telegraphs, and ironclads connected armies like never before. Strategy met industry. Over 600,000 died, but it redefined freedom and technology. Photography captured the horror for the first time, showing that war wasn't glory. It was mud, smoke, and the silence after cannon fire. Chapter 10. World War I began with gunshots in Sarajevo and ended with empires erased. Trench warfare turned Europe into a graveyard. Science made killing efficient. Machine guns, gas, tanks. Yet from that chaos came breakthroughs: radar, medicine, and aviation. Humanity learned that progress without empathy creates monsters made of steel and ambition. Chapter 11. World War II was the deadliest conflict in history. Over 70 million lives were lost. Nations fought across continents, skies, and seas. Hitler's invasion of Poland ignited it, and technology pushed boundaries: jets, rockets, and atomic bombs. Humanity reached both its darkest cruelty and greatest scientific leap, proving how knowledge without conscience can destroy. Chapter 12. The Pacific Front showed endurance beyond imagination. From island to island, U.S. forces fought Japan in brutal jungles and oceans. The Battle of Midway turned the tide. Strategy and code-breaking crushed superior numbers. Science in intelligence saved lives. Yet, Hiroshima and Nagasaki marked a tragic truth. Wars now ended with one blinding flash. Chapter 13. The Cold War wasn't fought with bullets, but with fear. The US and Soviet Union built arsenals capable of ending humanity. Satellites, spies, and propaganda replaced open battlefields. The race to the moon was a war of prestige and science. Every launch, every orbit, was a silent duel between ideology and innovation. Chapter 14. Vietnam became the war that questioned purpose. Technology couldn't defeat guerrilla tactics or local resolve. Helicopters filled the sky, napalm burned forests, and TV brought every death into homes. The science of war met the psychology of resistance. It wasn't just a military loss. It was a global lesson in human limits. Chapter 15. World War I saw the birth of chemical weapons, but the 20th century saw their control. International treaties banned gas warfare, yet nations secretly experimented. Science became both savior and threat, curing diseases on one side, designing bioweapons on the other. Humanity's greatest test was learning to hold back its own creation. Chapter 18. Medieval Europe's crusades spanned 2 centuries, mixing faith, politics, and greed. Soldiers traveled thousands of miles under holy banners. Castles rose, trade routes opened, and cultures collided. Despite the bloodshed, they unknowingly exchanged science, medicine, and knowledge. War, once again, spread civilization's light through its darkest corridors. Chapter 19. The Ottoman Empire reshaped warfare with cannons that tore through Constantinople's walls in 1453. The city fell, ending the Byzantine Empire. This moment marked a turning point. Medieval times gave way to modern warfare. Power shifted eastward, and gunpowder proved once more that innovation, not numbers, wins wars. Chapter 20. During the Napoleonic Wars, the concept of total war emerged. Entire nations, not just armies, were mobilized. Civilians, economies, and culture became targets and tools. Science helped organize massive logistics, from food to artillery. The idea of a distant battlefield vanished. War had entered every home, every breath of society. Chapter 21. The Crimean War in the 1850s introduced modern nursing. amid cannon smoke and disease. Florence Nightingale revolutionized battlefield medicine. She proved hygiene could save more lives than bullets could take. Her use of data and charts made war's cost visible, a quiet revolution showing that compassion can stand stronger than gunfire. Chapter 22. World War I saw the rise of aerial combat. Pilots became knights of the sky, dueling in fragile biplanes. The Red Baron, Manfred von Richthofen, shot down 80 enemies before dying in battle. The sky became a new front where physics, courage, and fate collided at 10,000 feet above the trenches below. Chapter 23. In World War II, codebreakers changed destiny. At Bletchley Park, Alan Turing and his team cracked the German Enigma machine. Mathematics became a weapon sharper than any sword. Their secret work shortened the war by years, saving millions. From that effort came the seeds of modern computing, born from the logic of survival. Chapter 24. The Korean War was a frozen struggle between ideologies. Soldiers fought in temperatures so cold their weapons jammed. It introduced jet fighters into warfare, with air battles screaming across icy skies. The front barely moved, but the tension shaped decades of global politics. It ended not with peace, but with a pause, one that still echoes. Chapter 25. World War II's D-Day invasion was the largest amphibious assault in history. Over 150,000 soldiers crossed the English Channel under relentless fire. Engineers built artificial harbors to land tanks and supplies. Science met bravery on Normandy's beaches. That day, weather, timing, and courage aligned to turn the war toward freedom. Chapter 26. The Spanish Civil War became a rehearsal for World War II. Hitler's Luftwaffe bombed Guernica, a city full of civilians, to test aerial tactics. Picasso painted its horror into history. It was proof that technology without morality leads to tragedy. The war's end marked the beginning of mechanized terror on a global scale. Chapter 27. The medieval Battle of Agincourt in 1415 showed strategy could defeat numbers. English archers used muddy terrain and longbows to destroy a French army 3 times their size. It was pure science in motion: physics, precision, and timing. The victory became legend, proving that intellect could outshine might. Chapter 28. The siege of Stalingrad turned one city into the heart of World War II. Street by street, house by house, soldiers fought through winter and ruin. Over 2 million died, yet the Soviet defense broke Hitler's advance. The turning point of the war came not from power, but from endurance born of desperation. Chapter 29. The invention of tanks changed ground warfare forever. During World War I, these steel beasts rolled through barbed wire and trenches. By World War II, they became the spearheads of Blitzkrieg, lightning war. Their evolution reflected human creativity under pressure, where engineering met the instinct to survive and conquer. Chapter 30. The Battle of Waterloo in 1815 ended Napoleon's reign. Rain turned the battlefield into mud, slowing his advance. Tiny details of weather shaped history's grand outcome. It proved that even genius can fall to chance. Science, luck, and timing combined in one muddy field to decide the fate of an empire. Chapter 31. The Samurai Wars of Japan were battles of honor and precision. The sword, not the gun, ruled. Samurai followed Bushido, the way of the warrior, where discipline mattered more than life. Their duels were as much spiritual as physical. When guns arrived, It ended an era where war had rules, respect, and poetry in motion. Chapter 32. The American Revolutionary War wasn't just a fight for land. It was a battle for ideas. Farmers faced one of the strongest empires on Earth. Guerrilla tactics and intelligence networks outwitted red-coated armies. Science helped too. Signal lamps, coded letters, and logistics turned rebellion into independence. Freedom began with strategy, not numbers. Chapter 33. The Battle of Hastings in 1066 changed Europe forever. Norman archers and cavalry defeated Anglo-Saxon infantry using deception and timing. A single arrow struck King Harold's eye, ending an age and beginning another. The fusion of cultures that followed shaped modern England, proving that war doesn't just destroy, it reshapes identity. Chapter 34. The Roman siege of Masada showed defiance beyond death. Jewish rebels held out against the empire's might atop a desert fortress. Rome built a massive ramp to reach them, but the defenders chose freedom in death over slavery. Engineering met faith, a clash where human will proved stronger than steel. Chapter 35. World War I's no man's land became the most dangerous place on Earth. Between two trenches lay mud, wire, and shattered dreams. Science gave rise to gas masks, machine guns, and tanks, all born from desperation. Soldiers lived like shadows, learning that even survival was a victory when progress cost humanity. Chapter 36. The Battle of Midway was fought not by chance, but by intellect. American codebreakers uncovered Japan's plans, turning ambush into victory. In just a few days, 4 Japanese carriers were destroyed. It proved that war's greatest weapon wasn't steel, it was information. Knowledge, precise and unseen, reshaped the Pacific's destiny. Chapter 37. The Punic Wars between Rome and Carthage were a struggle of giants. Hannibal crossed the Alps with elephants, an impossible feat of strategy and endurance. For years, he terrified Rome, yet discipline defeated daring. When Carthage fell, its ashes became a warning. Ambition without control leads to ruin eternal. Chapter 38. World War II's Eastern Front was the largest and bloodiest in history. From Moscow to Berlin, 20 million perished. The freezing winter stopped Hitler's advance. Nature itself joined the battle. Science couldn't overcome frostbite, hunger, or willpower. In the end, survival, not conquest, defined the victors of the snow-covered hell. Chapter 39. In medieval China, the invention of the crossbow shifted power forever. It allowed peasants to pierce armor once reserved for nobles. War became more equal and more brutal. Mechanics replaced heroism. The balance between innovation and humanity blurred, showing that progress often comes wrapped in violence and necessity. Chapter 40. The atomic bomb ended World War II, but began the Age of Fear. In Hiroshima, one device erased a city. In seconds, history divided, before and after the atom. Science had outpaced morality. The explosion wasn't just a weapon, it was a mirror, showing how knowledge without wisdom can end everything we build. Chapter 41. The Battle of Gettysburg became the heart of the American Civil War. For 3 days, soldiers fought through smoke and thunder across Pennsylvania hills. It ended the South's advance, marking a turning point in history. Over 50,000 fell, but from that loss came a nation's rebirth, where equality began to outweigh division. Chapter 42. The Battle of Trafalgar in 1805 ruled the seas for a century. Admiral Nelson's fleet outmaneuvered the French and Spanish using daring formations. His death in victory immortalized him. The ocean became Britain's empire, not through size, but through science. Wind, trajectory, and timing mastered like a natural law. Chapter 43. The invention of radar changed World War II. Invisible waves tracked enemy planes before they appeared. Science turned air into a weapon of awareness. Britain's survival during the Blitz depended on it. For the first time, war became a game of signals, where victory belonged to those who saw first, not those who struck hardest. Chapter 44. The Battle of the Somme defined the horror of trench warfare. Millions fought for a few muddy miles. New weapons, tanks, gas, machine guns met old tactics. The result was slaughter. Yet within the chaos, medicine advanced, prosthetics evolved, and humanity learned its darkest truth. Progress feeds on pain. Chapter 45. The Viking invasions of Europe spread both terror and trade. Their longships cut through rivers and seas, striking fast, vanishing faster. They raided, but also built, founding cities like Dublin and Kiev. The same oars that carried. Chapter 46. The Spanish conquest of the Aztecs wasn't just power, it was microbes. European diseases killed millions before swords were drawn. Hernán Cortés used both fear and faith to topple an empire. It showed how war isn't always fought by men, but by unseen forces, biology itself joining the battlefield. Chapter 47. The Zulu Empire under Shaka Zulu redefined tribal warfare. He invented new formations, faster tactics, and deadly short spears. His bullhorn strategy crushed larger armies through precision. Discipline turned warriors into machines of rhythm and chaos. From Africa's plains rose a genius of movement unmatched by empire generals. Chapter 48. The Siege of Leningrad lasted nearly 900 days. Civilians starved, yet never surrendered. Science kept them alive. Improvised food, medical research, even art. It was war's longest heartbeat of endurance. When the city finally stood free, it proved that courage isn't loud. It's quiet, patient, and unbreakable. Chapter 49. The space race wasn't fought with guns, but rockets. The Cold War turned science into competition. Sputnik, Yuri Gagarin, Apollo 11, every launch was a statement of dominance. Yet out of rivalry came unity. Humanity learned that our greatest battle wasn't Earth against Earth, but humanity reaching beyond its wars. Chapter 50. Cyber warfare has no soldiers, only signals. Nations now fight in silence, hacking power grids, stealing secrets, spreading lies. The weapon is information, and the battlefield is invisible. The science of war has turned digital. The future's greatest conflict won't start with bombs, but with a keystroke in the dark. Chapter 51. The Boer Wars in South Africa showed how guerrilla tactics could challenge empires. Farmers on horseback outmaneuvered British columns, using terrain and speed as their allies. The British responded with blockhouses and concentration camps. It was a brutal test of endurance, where innovation met cruelty, and victory carried a heavy conscience. Chapter 52. The Battle of Britain was fought entirely in the sky. Pilots as young as 19 defended their homeland against the Luftwaffe. Radar gave them vision through clouds, turning data into defense. Never was so much owed by so many to so few, said Churchill. It proved that courage plus technology could rewrite fate. Chapter 53. The invention of submarines made the ocean unpredictable. In World War I and II, U-boats hunted silently beneath waves, cutting supply lines like shadows. Sonar became the answer. Sound used as sight. It was science against science, a deadly chess game played in the deep where silence was survival. Chapter 54. The Battle of Thermopylae wasn't just about numbers, it was about legacy. 300 Spartans stood against an empire, delaying Persia's advance. Their sacrifice became eternal. Strategy, terrain, and discipline turned a hopeless defense into legend. It showed the world that honor can echo louder than victory itself. Chapter 55. The French Revolution's wars spread both chaos and ideals. Armies fought not for kings, but for liberty. Cannons thundered in the name of equality. The metric system, conscription, and modern nationalism emerged. Science and ideology marched together, proving that revolutions don't end with words, they continue on battlefields. Chapter 56. The invasion of Normandy was a storm of steel and courage. Soldiers faced bullets, waves, and fear on foreign shores. Behind them stood engineers, scientists, and cryptographers. Every tide and time was calculated. D-Day wasn't just bravery, it was precision. War became mathematics, and freedom its final equation. Chapter 57. The Trojan War, half legend, half truth, still haunts history. Greek armies besieged Troy for 10 years, but deception won. The wooden horse hid victory inside. Whether myth or memory, it revealed humanity's oldest pattern. When strength fails, the mind becomes the sharpest blade. Chapter 58. The rise of nuclear submarines made deterrence invisible. Entire nations could vanish with one order. Yet peace endured through fear. Mutually assured destruction became twisted logic. Safety through the promise of ruin. It was science turned paradox, where knowledge kept the world alive by threatening its end. Chapter 59. The Gulf of Tonkin incident drew America deep into Vietnam. One misinterpreted radar signal sparked years of war. It proved how fragile truth becomes in conflict. Data, politics, and perception blurred into one. The science of communication became the spark that ignited jungles and divided generations. Chapter 60. The Blitzkrieg changed how wars began and ended. Speed, surprise, and coordination defined it. Tanks, planes, and radio worked as one machine. France fell in weeks, not from weakness, but from shock. The science of timing replaced attrition, proving that modern war wasn't about endurance, but momentum. Chapter 61. The Battle of Berlin ended World War II in Europe. Streets turned into graveyards as the Soviet army stormed the city. Hitler's empire collapsed in ruins of concrete and smoke. Science built the weapons, but willpower ended the tyranny. When the guns fell silent, history took a deep, exhausted breath. Chapter 62. The Falklands War in 1982 proved that even distant islands could ignite global conflict. Britain and Argentina fought with missiles and naval fleets across freezing seas. Technology guided every strike. The world watched real-time combat through television. War no longer distant, but personal, framed by broadcast light and sound. Chapter 63. The medieval siege of Constantinople in 1204 showed the dark side of alliances. Crusaders meant to reclaim the Holy Land turned their swords against a Christian city instead. Gold replaced faith. Greed replaced glory. It proved that war often forgets its cause, devouring even those who claim righteousness. Chapter 64. The Gulf War's Operation Desert Storm unleashed precision bombing unseen before. Satellites, stealth jets, and laser-guided missiles painted a new picture of war: fast, distant, digital. It was a showcase of science as strategy. Power now meant information, and dominance came from what you could see before others could move. Chapter 65. The invention of drones erased distance from war. Eyes in the sky could strike targets thousands of miles away. Pilots no longer risked death, yet civilians did. Technology blurred morality. The battlefield became global, and the question shifted from "can we do it?" to "should we?" Chapter 66. The Peloponnesian War between Athens and Sparta was the downfall of Greek unity. Democracy fought discipline. Philosophy met pragmatism. In the end, plague and pride destroyed both sides. Historians called it the First Total War, where politics, economics, and disease joined swords in deciding civilization's fate. Chapter 67. World War I's naval race was an arms competition on water. Britain and Germany built dreadnoughts, massive steel ships powered by science and pride. But the ocean favored patience, not size. Submarines soon replaced glory with stealth, showing that victory at sea belonged to silence, not splendor. Chapter 68. The Battle of Okinawa became the bloodiest Pacific conflict. Kamikaze pilots crashed into ships, embodying desperation. Civilians hid in caves while the sky burned. Yet from that destruction came the lesson that surrender can sometimes save life more than resistance, a truth humanity struggled to accept. Chapter 69. The invasion of Iraq in 2003 revealed the era of asymmetric war. The world's strongest military met invisible enemies, insurgents, and ideology. Satellites couldn't find conviction. It showed that modern conflict isn't fought only on land, but in minds and media. Perception became the battlefield of the 21st century. Chapter 70. The Great Siege of Malta in 1565 saw a handful of knights resist the vast Ottoman fleet. Outnumbered, they used fortifications, fire, and faith. After months of bombardment, the defenders stood victorious. Chapter 71. The Battle of Cannae remains one of history's greatest tactical masterpieces. Hannibal surrounded a Roman army twice his size using perfect timing and geometry. The result was annihilation. Generals study it even today. Proof that war is a science of movement, where a single idea can crush an empire's pride. Chapter 72. The Siege of Vienna in 1683 stopped Ottoman expansion into Europe. Outnumbered defenders held until Polish cavalry charged down from the hills, breaking the siege. It wasn't just a victory, it was a turning point that preserved European culture. From cannons to courage, every moment became legend in the balance of civilizations. Chapter 73. The Battle of Kursk in 1943 was the largest. Chapter 75. The Russo-Japanese War shocked the world. For the first time, an Asian power defeated a European empire. Naval battles at Tsushima showed strategy, communication, and modernization in motion. It signaled a new age where global balance shifted east, and war became a test of innovation, not heritage. Chapter 76. The 30 Years' War devastated Europe, turning faith into fire. Religion became politics. Cities vanished under famine and plague. Yet from the ashes rose diplomacy, the Peace of Westphalia, which shaped modern nations. It proved humanity learns peace only after exhausting every possible way to destroy itself. Chapter 77. The Haitian Revolution was a war for freedom born from chains. Enslaved people defeated French, Spanish, and British armies, creating the first Black Republic. Strategy met courage in the Caribbean heat. It wasn't just rebellion, it was proof that liberty's fire burns even under the harshest oppression. Chapter 78. The Spanish Armada's defeat in 1588 reshaped naval power. England's smaller ships used speed and weather to scatter the mighty fleet. Science, wind patterns, fire ships, and timing became decisive. Storms finished what courage began. The seas changed masters, proving nature often chooses the victor. Chapter 79. The war in Afghanistan lasted 2 decades, the longest in modern history. Superpowers entered with confidence and left with lessons. Mountains, culture, and endurance defeated machines. Drones and data couldn't replace human understanding. In the end, patience proved mightier than precision. Chapter 80. The Crusade of Children in 1212 was one of history's most tragic delusions. Thousands of young believers marched to reclaim the Holy Land, but most vanished, sold, starved, or lost. It showed the danger of faith without guidance. Even innocence can become a casualty when dreams meet reality. Chapter 81. The Boxer Rebellion in China was both resistance and tragedy. Locals rose against foreign control, armed with faith instead of rifles. The Qing dynasty joined too late, and modern armies crushed them. It proved how technology had reshaped power. Courage alone could no longer stand against the machine age. Chapter 82. The Battle of Blenheim in 1704 ended the myth of French invincibility. Allied forces under Marlborough struck with coordination rarely seen. Strategy and timing dismantled a giant. It wasn't just victory, it was evolution, showing Europe that precision and unity could rewrite centuries of dominance. Chapter 83. The Meiji Restoration in Japan transformed a feudal nation into an industrial power. Samurai laid down swords for rifles and railways. Within decades, Japan defeated empires older and larger. It was proof that modernization isn't imitation, it's reinvention forged through necessity and vision. Chapter 84. The Spanish-American War in 1898 launched the U.S. as a global power. A single explosion, the USS Maine, ignited national fury. In months, Spain's empire collapsed. The war showed how media and technology could move nations faster than diplomacy ever could. Influence replaced invasion. Chapter 83. The Meiji Restoration in Japan transformed a feudal nation into an industrial power. Samurai laid down swords for rifles and railways. Within decades, Japan defeated empires older and larger. It was proof that modernization isn't imitation. It's reinvention forged through necessity and vision. Chapter 84. The Spanish-American War in 1898 launched the U.S. as a global power. A single explosion, the USS Maine, ignited national fury. In months, Spain's empire collapsed. The war showed how media and technology could move nations faster than diplomacy ever could. Influence replaced invasion. Chapter 85. The Battle of the Bulge was Hitler's last gamble. In the frozen Ardennes, German tanks punched through Allied lines under blizzards. Yet unity and communication turned the tide. Radios, fuel logistics, and sheer endurance reversed defeat. It proved that even in darkness, resilience could still outlast ambition. Chapter 86. The Rwandan Civil War revealed humanity's deepest wound. Neighbors turned on each other while the world watched in silence. Amid horror, UN peacekeepers and doctors fought to save lives with almost nothing. It was a brutal lesson that peacekeeping demands more than presence. It requires courage to intervene. Chapter 87. The Crimean conflict of the 2010s revived old tensions in modern form. Drones, propaganda, and cyber attacks mixed with Turks. Truth became a battlefield. It was proof that history never ends. It just changes weapons. In the 21st century, war moved from soil to screens. Chapter 88. The War of Roses in England turned family into enemy. Rival dynasties fought through betrayal and blood until one house rose, the Tudors. Intrigue and politics mattered as much as swords. It proved that power isn't just taken on battlefields, but in whispers, marriages, and choices behind closed doors. Chapter 89. The collapse of the Soviet Union ended the Cold War without a single shot. Economic strain defeated ideology. Science, technology, and endurance finally outweighed control. It was proof that wars can be won by patience, that not every victory requires destruction, only time and understanding. Chapter 90. The Battle of the Nile in 1798 showed how innovation could destroy tradition. Admiral Nelson trapped the French fleet in shallow waters, using the sun and tide as allies. When the night ended, France's power in Egypt was gone. Nature and intellect together became the quiet architects of victory. Chapter 91. The Opium Wars marked the clash between trade and sovereignty. Britain forced China open through gunboats and greed. Cannons defended commerce, not justice. From the smoke rose a new global order, one where economics became another weapon, and war no longer needed conquest to enslave. Chapter 92. The Iran-Iraq War of the 1980s lasted 8 brutal years. Trench lines, chemical weapons, and missiles mirrored World War I's cruelty. Millions died for borders that barely shifted. It was proof that technology without diplomacy breeds endless circles of destruction, progress trapped in repetition. Chapter 93. The war in Kosovo was fought on screens as much as in cities. NATO jets struck from the sky while news broadcast every explosion. Civilians became the focus, not armies. It was the dawn of humanitarian warfare, a paradox where saving lives meant taking others. Chapter 94. The Battle of Lepanto in 1571 ended Ottoman dominance at sea. Galleys clashed in chaotic formation, oars breaking, cannons roaring. Christian fleets united for the first time in generations. It was the last great battle of road ships, where faith, fire, and technology collided on the open sea. Chapter 95. The Battle of Yorktown in 1781 sealed America's independence. French fleets blocked British escape while Washington's army surrounded the city. The world watched an empire kneel. It proved that alliances, not isolation, build nations. Even revolutions need cooperation to stand the test of time. Chapter 96. The War of the Pacific between Chile, Peru, and Bolivia was fought for saltpeter, simple minerals that powered the world's weapons. Industry drove bloodshed. Technology made resources as valuable as gold. It showed that modern wars were rarely about pride. They were about fuel, trade, and control. Chapter 97. The Balkan Wars before World War I were sparks that lit Europe's powder keg. Ethnic tensions, collapsing empires, and shifting alliances built a storm no one could stop. Science had advanced, but diplomacy hadn't. Humanity stood ready for progress, yet armed for catastrophe. Chapter 98. The War on Terror reshaped the century. Towers fell, nations invaded, and fear became policy. Drones replaced soldiers. Surveillance replaced trust. Technology promised safety, but delivered paranoia. It proved that war's battlefield had expanded, from deserts to data, from ideology to the invisible. Chapter 99. The Ukrainian resistance of the 2020s showed the power of unity and innovation. Drones, 3D printing, and digital warfare turned civilians into defenders. Small teams defeated larger forces through adaptability. It was modern resilience, proof that courage now wears the face of creativity. Chapter 100. From stone spears to satellites, war has mirrored evolution itself. Survival through adaptation. Every conflict, ancient or modern, carries lessons of science, will, and consequence. Humanity's story is written in both progress and pain. And in the silence after every battle, we remember, knowledge wins wars, but wisdom ends them. Every war ends, but its echoes never fade. Behind every victory lies a warning, and behind every loss, a lesson. History isn't just about weapons, it's about choices. Because the greatest power humanity ever holds is learning.